All right. Hello and welcome. Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to another episode of the Empowered Immigrant Live. My name is Otis Landerholm, and I'm the founding attorney here at Landerholm Immigration, A.P.C, where we fight for your American dream. And thank you so much for being here. Welcome to another episode of the Empowered Immigrant Live. Today, our topic is this week's Supreme Court and BIA madness. All right? And it is a mad world out there. And yeah, I'm sorry for the things that I'm about to share, but it's sometimes you gotta know what's going on, right? And so welcome and thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate each of you, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your tuning in this beautiful Tuesday morning. I'm filming this on the 9th of September of 2025. So thank you for being here. So remember, the Empowered Immigrant Live is where we train, teach, inspire, and empower immigrants to make the most out of immigration laws and to make the most out of their lives. All right, why do we do that? Because in our opinion, immigrants are awesome. Immigrants are amazing. Immigrants are an enormous contribution to our society. I just wish that our society recognized that. All right, like wake up, society, wake up, current president and current president's administration. Immigrants are human beings that have value. All right, and so it's like let's empower the immigrants in our midst. Let's actually thank the immigrants in our midst for contributing to our society and for bringing ideas and other viewpoints from other parts of the world. Like, immigrants matter, and they're actually awesome. I know thousands of them and have gotten to know thousands of them. And let me tell you, they're amazing human beings. And so that's why we're here doing what we're doing. Today, our theme is this week's Supreme Court and BIA, Board of Immigration Appeals, madness. And I just wish that the Supreme Court and the BIA valued immigrants because immigrants matter. Okay? And so my question for you is, do you want to get a green card? Do you want to get asylum? Do you want to get a U visa? Do you want to apply for something? Do you want to figure out what the best strategy is, what the best way is, what the best legal mechanism is for you to sort out your immigration situation, for you to up-level your life through the immigration laws of the United States? Because if so, go for it. All right, go for it. And I'd love to help you with that. My firm is on a mission to win 10,000 cases in the next 10 years. We would love for your case to be one of them. All right? As I'm talking about what I'm talking about today, if you have questions, please submit your questions. I'll do my best to answer them right here, right now, live. All right? And if I fall over or something, you'll have to excuse me. All right? I did a crazy Ironman triathlon event over this last weekend, a 70.3 mile triathlon, swim, bike, and run. And my legs are sore, and my muscles are sore, and here I am. Okay, so thank you for being here with me. Really appreciate each of you. Let me talk about this BIA case first. So this was Friday night, last Friday. As we're leaving the office, the BIA hands out a new case that's a doozy. All right, it's this case. It's what, a 14-page decision. I think that's right, 14-page decision. And it's the matter of Yahure Hurtado. This is a gentleman from Venezuela, and he's appealing the denial of his bond. All right? And for the first time ever, the BIA, Board of Immigration Appeals, decided September 5th, last Friday, says that nope, anybody that entered the U.S. without inspection, EWI, entered without inspection, anybody who EWI'd entry no longer can get bond. All right? Immigration judges, according to this case, immigration judges no longer have jurisdiction to even consider bond for anyone who arrived to the country without inspection. All right? That is a enormous decision with an enormous implication. And, just came out on Friday of last week. In my view, it's horrible and it's horribly incorrect, right? For the last decades, we've fought bond hearings for folks. And hey, if you're not a danger to the society, if you're not a flight risk, let's get a bond while you're fighting for asylum. If you're not a danger and if you're not a threat to society and you're not a flight risk, hey, let's get you bonded out so that we can fight for your U visa, so that you can fight your VAWA case, so that you can apply for adjustment of status through your U.S. citizen spouse, right? This decision takes that bond argument away. It takes that ability to say, are you a danger? Are you a flight risk, right? In the past, it's like, hey, if you're found to be dangerous because you've got a serious criminal record or something, okay, then they'll deny bond, right? But if you have no arrest, if you've got a clean history, right, but you crossed in without permission, now you're going to be subject to mandatory detention. That's awful, folks. That's awful. Here's what the ALA president said about it. Let me see if I can find that quote. All right, so Jeff Joseph, president of the American Immigration Lawyers Association, he says that this interpretation, right, that this interpretation in this case has already been rejected by various federal courts and that he's confident that it will be rejected again. But he says that removing immigration judges' authority to decide whether somebody should be detained while they're awaiting civil court immigration proceedings simply forces detained individuals to file what we call habeas corpus petitions, which will clog up the already burdened federal courts. And he describes it as the latest step in the president's campaign to turn immigration judges into rubber stamps rather than actual judges. Okay? He says this decision will put billions of taxpayers' dollars in the pockets of private prison companies and will irredeemably damage American families, businesses, and communities. And then he calls Congress, saying Congress needs to step in and stop the Trump administration's weaponization of the immigration courts and protect the integrity and the fairness of America's court system. I think that's pretty well said. All right, so that's an awful decision. What does it really mean in practice? What it means is if you entered the country without permission, right, you were never inspected, admitted, or paroled into the United States, you got to be careful. All right, your risk of being, it's not your risk of being detained. It's if you're detained, you're not going to be let out. You're not going to be eligible for bond, which means you've got to have your case sorted out. All right, you've got to have your case sorted out. You need to have a lawyer. You need to have a plan. You need to know what to do if you're detained. Right? Like imagine being detained and then having to find a lawyer. Right? That's dangerous. You don't want that. You want a lawyer ahead of time who's got your plan, who's got your case, who's got your file, who's ready to go, so that if that ever were to happen, you have a game plan. You know what to file in court because you're not going to be able to be released, at least until we strike this thing down. All right? So that was on Friday, and it is bad, and we'll see what happens. You know, this is not the end of the story. The circuit courts need to weigh in on this, all right? And the federal courts need to weigh in on this because, in my view, the BIA is really, really wrong here, okay? But it's awful. So that's happening. That happened on Friday. Then yesterday, the U.S. Supreme Court, in a separate case, agreed with the Trump administration about something very different, all right? The U.S. Supreme Court is allowing officers in the LA area to engage in stops, all right, and engage in what they call roving patrols, detaining people who, quote unquote, look like immigrants. All right? Originally, this was like, nope, this is racial profiling and violation of the U.S. Constitution. We'd better stop this. But yesterday, in a bad decision, we're just getting bad decisions everywhere, I feel like. All right? 6-3, remember, there's 9 justices on the U.S. Supreme Court. So in a 6-3 decision, so not unanimous, in a 6-3 decision, they're allowing officers to make arrests in the LA area, saying that the officers can rely on the quote-unquote totality of the circumstances when making a stop. And among the circumstances, all right, they're allowed to consider the quote-unquote extremely high number and percentage of illegal immigrants in the Los Angeles area. All right, that can be one of the circumstances. All right, and they talk about more. They say that those individuals that tend to gather in certain locations to seek work, or that those individuals will work in certain types of jobs, such as day laboring or landscaping or agriculture or construction. Anybody that owns those types of companies, be mindful, all right, that many of those people do not speak English, that many of those people come from Mexico or Central America, all right? So the Supreme Court did say, to be clear, ethnicity alone cannot be a reason to stop someone, all right, including for an immigration-based stop. However, it can be a quote-unquote relevant factor when doing a totality of the circumstance, which what that means is it's giving ICE the ability to set up roving stops wherever they want to in the LA area, and not just in LA, right? But this was a LA case. And so yeah, you gotta be mindful, all right? These two things, it's like they can detain more people, and now those people are not going to be eligible to be released on bond. They can detain more people, and people can't be released. And it's like, yeah, it's ugly. It's ugly, folks. I don't like it. I don't like it. And if you're hearing me and if you're tuning in, thank you so much for tuning in, and I really appreciate your being here. And this is happening, all right? This is happening. You got to know about it. So let me know what your questions are. You know, a couple things kind of on a personal note. You know, I've got friends who are immigration lawyers throughout the country. One of my friends is a good, great attorney down in the LA area. He was communicating with me yesterday, and he's like, man, all this stuff happening, clients, they don't want to file immigration applications right now. He asked me, so should I start learning a new practice area? Should I start like, you know, I don't know, should I do less immigration law and go start doing, you know, family law or divorce law or something like that? Should I, because like immigration, who's going to want to immigrate now? Right? And it's like, think about that question. Right? Do we need fewer good immigration lawyers right now? My answer to that was like, yeah, it's a crazy time right now, but no, dude. No. It's not time to quit. It's not time to give up. Like, let's not give up on our clients. Let's not give up on our people. It's time to rise to the challenge. It's time to fight. Like, now's the time that immigration lawyers are in the most need that, like, ever. And it's like comparing that. So that's That was one friend of mine, right? I was like, no, let's do this. Let's fight this fight. I had another friend of mine, her name's Kate Lincoln Goldfinch, check her out, who announced yesterday she's running for Congress. All right, she's an immigration lawyer friend of mine, and she's not federal, but local Congress in the city of Austin, Texas. It's like, go Kate, man, that's awesome. All right? And it's like, so how do you address these types of issues? Challenges are inevitable in life. How do you respond to them? All right? For me, what am I doing? I'm growing my firm, people. I've hired 4 outstanding attorneys in the past 3 months. One of those attorneys is a former immigration judge. All right? And we are here to fight for people. And on a personal note, for me this weekend, I mentioned it, I ran a 70.3 mile Ironman triathlon. And it's like, why? Because you know something? It's important to keep on living. It's important to keep on striving, to keep on challenging yourself, to grow, to improve. Like, don't allow all this madness to hold you back in your life. Yes, get a lawyer. Yes, get a law firm who will fight for you so you can be empowered and so that you can continue to live your best life. You know, the Trump administration is not going to last forever, folks. You will outlast it. And let's get your immigration case, let's get your immigration situation handled whenever possible, right? So that all this craziness is just a memory for you. Like, let's figure out the way. And let's fight for it. All right? Of course, the best advice is, it's not, like, don't go through this alone. All right? Get support. Get a team behind you. Get empowered. And let's freaking fight this fight. All right, so that's all I got. Thank you for tuning in here. So let me get into your questions, and thank you for being here. Really appreciate each of you. And so let's see, Sirlene Nunez, I see your question. Do you think I can travel out of the country with my travel permission? You have a T visa. Yeah. If you have a travel document, you have a legal travel document, you've already been approved for a T visa, then good. You should be okay. I'm not advising you to travel, obviously. I can't give you that. This is not legal advice. Talk to your attorney first if you want actual legal advice. But based on your question, if your T visa is good, if you don't have a deportation order against you, if you don't have any arrests or crimes or anything against you, if your travel document is unexpired and legally valid, you should be okay. Okay? And, if you want to be extra cautious, get your green card first, right? So yeah, get your green card first. Katarina, you say, sir, does this apply to green card holders for the no bond? No, it does not. Thank you for asking that question. Once you have a green card, you have legally been admitted, all right? Even if you got it as an adjustment of status, even if you got it as an adjustment of status through 245I and were like actually never actually inspected and admitted into the country, if you have a green card, you are not subject to this order. Okay? So if you have a green card and get detained by ICE, you still do have the right to request a bond. And then you can show that you're not a danger to the society and you're not a flight risk and ask the judge to release you under bond. Of course, if you have a green card, you could also file a motion to terminate your case as long as your green card is legal and valid and you haven't violated your green card in some way. Okay, but thank you for asking that question. Eat Zedik, all right, thank you. You say you filed Form G325A for deferred action with work authorization since May 29th. How long does it take? It takes forever. It takes forever. If it is military-based deferred action, give it 2 years. Okay? If it's some other type of deferred action, then you're going to need to talk to a lawyer to really discuss it, right? Because, yeah, you want to make sure that you're filing things that are approvable, right? Let's see, Mr. Brilliant, I see your question. You say you have a question. Send me the rest of your question. Okay, you said, I have a friend who's in Tijuana, Mexico, seeking to come to the U.S. What are his possibilities? Well, he can apply for a tourist visa. He can apply for a student visa. He can apply for a work-related visa. He can apply for a family-based immigration benefit if he's married to a U.S. citizen or has immediate family here in the U.S. All right? Basically, all of those options are not what my office does. All right? My office fights for the rights of immigrants who are already here. My office fights for the rights of immigrants who are here and are facing deportation. For people who are outside the U.S. looking to come in, go through the legal process, but it's very difficult. All of those processes I mentioned, like maybe all of them will be denied, right? It is very difficult to get a visa to enter the U.S., but he can try, right? If he applies for a tourist visa to come in to visit for a few months or something like that, like that's possible, but zero guarantees, right? They're not guaranteeable cases. All right, let's see. Torres, I see your question here. Question, how likely is it that they will start stopping people all over the U.S., like in Tucson, Arizona? I mean, they will, right? They will. It's not a question of, it's a question of resources, right? And so it's a question of time. It's a question of, it's a question of how soon they could do that, or, they now have more money and power than they probably have ever had. Right, and so but there's a lot of folks. I mean, it's not possible to detain every single person who is undocumented in the United States, right? 15 million or so people. That's more than the government could possibly detain at any one time, right? And so it's a question of timing and resources and things of that nature. But they could very well already be in Tucson, Arizona. I haven't had a case from Tucson in a while. We have had some, but I haven't had a case in Tucson, Arizona in a while. But yes, I mean, bottom line is, how likely is it they'll start stopping people all over the U.S.? I mean, they kind of already are, right? They kind of already are. My message here today is, get ready, get prepared, don't panic, all right? That's not what I'm saying, but get empowered, right? Get ahead of it, be proactive, right? Because it is happening. And so you're going to want to be smart about it, right? So Mr. Brilliant, I see your question here, like, no, like this, it's not my type of case. There are lots of law firms, though, that help immigrants come into the U.S. It's not what my firm does, right? But thank you for asking. Let's see, user 3840. You say, how long does it take for a decision for a motion to reopen with the BIA, all right, on appeal? All right, so that's a good question. I'd say maybe, there's a wide range here, and there's no publicly issued processing times. So you're asking a good question, and it's difficult to give you a precise answer. I'd say 18 months, maybe 18 months for a decision on a motion to reopen if it's done well. If it's done poorly, it'll be dismissed in 6 months. All right? But if it's done well, then they'll have to really think about it, and hopefully you get an approval, and it'll be probably somewhere between a year and 18 months. All right. Yeah, and Mr. Brilliant, if he doesn't have any of those options, then he doesn't have a case, right? He's going to lose. All right, so then let's see, AWOLs. That's so unfortunate that many of us who love the USA are no longer even interested in visiting. I know, right? I agree with that 100%. Exactly. It's like, man, people, there are so many cool things about the United States that people would love. I was in San Francisco when 2 weeks ago, and the awesome like seafood restaurants on Fisherman's Wharf and stuff like that. This is like super popular area. They're like starting to go out of business because people aren't visiting, right? People aren't like we're not attracting the visitors from other parts of the world that would normally come and visit, right? It's pretty crazy. I mean, maybe that's part of Trump's plan, you know. N. Rod, you say, I'm a U.S. citizen, Hispanic, and I speak Spanish. What happens if I refuse to provide proof of citizenship? Yeah, so if they had reasonable suspicion to believe that you're here in violation of immigration laws, which hopefully they don't, right? Just the fact that you're Hispanic and speak Spanish does not mean that they have reasonable suspicion to stop you, despite this crazy Supreme Court decision. All right, but if immigration, if ICE were to stop you, right, and you refuse to provide proof of citizenship, they could arrest you, and they could allege that you're in violation of immigration laws. Now, if you say that, hey, no, I'm a U.S. citizen, they'll have a choice as to whether or not they believe you or not. Like, hopefully you have a real ID driver's license. That could do it. Hopefully you have some kind of, like, honestly, a real ID driver's license would probably be the easiest way to just be like, okay, fine, But if you don't want to show them that, or if you refuse to provide proof, then yeah, they could arrest you and say, well, you're going to have to show it. You're going to have to tell it to a judge. You're going to have to prove that you're a U.S. citizen, right? Which is a nasty situation to be in, but that's how that works. Okay, let's see. Are there any other questions? I don't know if I've gotten. See, it looks like there's some other questions here on TikTok. Let's see. Do you consult for a doctor? Second opinion. Going to Juarez soon, waiting for an appointment. Want a second opinion. So that's an interesting question. We do second opinions all the time. If it's a doctor, like, are you asking for a doctor's, like, an opinion about the medical exam? Or are you asking for an opinion about your immigration case? Because if it's a second opinion about the medical situation, like a medical doctor, that's not what we do, right? But if it's a second opinion about your immigration situation and your inadmissibility grounds and whether or not you'll need a waiver and whether or not you are eligible for the immigration benefit you're seeking, then absolutely, feel free to give us a call. We're here to help. We'd love to help. Okay. Then let's see. Kayla, I see your question here on TikTok. What is your opinion on the no bonds policy? What hopes, if any, could there be? Yeah, thank you. My opinion is that, one, it's bad. It's a bad decision, and it's bad policy, and it's going to have serious real-world consequences, meaning that a lot of people will be detained and stuck, and they're going to need to fight their case and get a lawyer and fight that fight and just be detained for several months while they're fighting their case. That's one. But two, I think it eventually will be appealed, and I think the federal circuit courts, the Ninth Circuit, the various circuit courts throughout the country, I think that they will say, yeah, the BIA got this wrong. Okay, this is not the correct interpretation of our immigration laws. Courts have been interpreting immigration laws since the Immigration Nationality Act was first passed in the 1960s. And this is the first time, 50 plus years later, where they're finally just deciding, oh, we've been interpreting it wrong all of these years, and actually, surprise, all of the people that came in without inspection now suddenly aren't eligible for bond. Why? Because Trump's in power, right? Like, that's kind of, wrong, right? It's kind of garbage. You're not supposed to interpret what the law says just because of your political views, right? The law is what the law is. The law is what Congress decided that it was back in the 60s when it passed, not the way the BIA is interpreting it right now in the present. Of course, it's easier to say that than, it's easier said than done. I don't know, that's not quite right. It's easy for me to say that versus to win those battles and win those arguments in front of the circuit courts. That's going to take a ton of work, all right? And but that's why we need good immigration lawyers. It's like, okay, it's time to step up and time to attack these arguments, and that's my opinion. Time to step it up, all right? And my firm is doing that and gearing up to do it even more. All right. Any wait? So let's see, Kayla, you say any wait if we already tried to get a process started. You have an I-130 pending. I mean, that's probably right. If you're eligible for some immigration benefit, get it going, right? You're probably doing the right thing. You're probably doing the smart thing, the wise thing. Get your case going so you can get a green card, so that you can get all this issue, all this madness behind you, right? Let's see, can USCIS deny you for a dismissed petite larceny arrest? No conviction, no admission of guilt. The answer is yes, they can. They actually don't have to arrest you or anyone because of that arrest. They could arrest you or anyone just because you don't have valid documents, right? So, but yes, they certainly could. They certainly could. In fact, they might have to under the Lake and Riley Act. Petty theft, right? Actually, is a mandatory detention issue, even if it wasn't a conviction, right? It's a petty theft arrest. Yeah, the Lake and Riley Act was ugly too, and that happened in January this year, right? So let's see. I think those are each of the questions that I've had so far today. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you so much. I really appreciate each of you. My name's Otis Landerholm. I'm the founding attorney here at Landerholm Immigration, A.P.C., where we fight for your American dream. Look, if any of this was useful, if any of this was helpful, please take a moment, go to our channel in YouTube, hit the subscribe button. To find it in YouTube, click Landerholm Immigration, right? Landerholm Immigration in YouTube, and hit the subscribe button. When you're there, please also hit the notifications bell, and you can receive a notification whenever we upload an additional video with updates and news and all the stuff that's going on, all right? All right, path divergence, I see your question. What exactly goes on during a supervisor review following the naturalization interview? Yeah, it's exactly what it says, right? The immigration officer who did the interview took a bunch of notes, reviewed your application, and they're like, oh, okay, maybe they want to approve it, maybe they want to deny it, maybe they're not sure which way, so let me take it to my supervisor. Citizenship cases, right now they're riskier than ever, by the way, first of all. The good moral character memo that just came out and other things are making the risks go up for citizenship. But when you go to your interview, often you'll meet with immigration officers who are brand new, right? Citizenship interviews, they're often the place where when a brand new officer gets hired and trained, they're often just doing NATS interviews because it's simpler in many ways than many of the other types of applications. So the problem with that, though, is many of those officers don't know what they're doing. And so they need to go and review the case with their supervisor. And it's just very common. And sometimes the supervisor will say, this case needs to be denied for these reasons. Sometimes the supervisor will say, okay, you should approve this. This is all good. And sometimes the supervisor will say, officer, you missed this question. You should have asked this detail. What about this and that? And then they'll schedule like a request for additional evidence that you'll need to clarify before you can approve your case. Okay? That's it. That's it. All right, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here. Really appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for being here. My name's Otis Landerholm. I'm the founding attorney here at Landerholm Immigration, A.P.C., where we fight for your American dream. If we can help you in any way with your immigration situation, if you're looking for good legal advice, feel free to give us a call. We're here to help. We'd love to help. All right? And otherwise, thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time on our next episode of the Empowered Immigrant Live. Thanks a lot. Make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.